No.
Oh.
Okay, you're ready to go now.
Perfect. First, I would like to make a motion that we authorize the city to enter into a real estate negotiation for the replacement, for the well one replacement location. Would that be adequate as a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, good enough. There we go. We have a motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Or on the phone, thumbs up or thumbs down? These thumbs up, okay. So we're unanimous on that one. The second one, and Superintendent Olinger, let me know if I screwed the language up on this one, and I can correct it. I would like to make a motion that we authorize the city to begin a research on a property purchase and or a lease agreement for work on, what actually, before I go on, what would that be for? I know it's for the wastewater pump lift station, but do we want to, is it for the replacement of it or for servicing of it?
It's for expansion and upgrade.
Expansion, okay. So back to that, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the city to begin research on property and or lease agreement for the expansion of the, screw this up again. The lift station currently located along the railroad tracks.
And then do we want to add and potential other
Yes,
uses?
and the potential, I did say lease, so,
But potential other uses for these other
yes, and
parcels that we make, that we're gonna open negotiations for as well.
as stated.
Is that clear?
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say, and we do have a thumbs up with Councilor Godley. Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the best words I've learned as being mayor, as stated. So we'll wait, 5 minutes to go ahead and reconvene. Godley, I'm gonna go ahead and keep you on the speakerphone in case you have any questions. Just make an arm gesture, unless your microphone gets up and working.
I want to see if anybody else on there can,
Here, speak.
yeah, can talk and we can hear.
Sure.
Okay.
Check with Chief Carmen.
And thank you, Karen. We're not very formal here. Talk at this time, you guys. Thank you.
Can we get a mic check? If anybody's on the call, can you guys check in and just let us know if your mics are working?
I can hear you guys okay.
Okay, let's try.
That seems to be on our side then.
It looks like it's on our speakers, not the microphones.
Councilor Yonley here, testing again. Can you hear me? No?
Nope, we hear voice.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, good.
Perfect. Now I can hang up on you. Yeah, we're in recess for 4 minutes.
So I think they'll look up the next.
That would be fantastic. That would work out. Hey, how are you? Candy's done such a fantastic job of redeveloping basically useless land for us. Yep. And I did have dog park too. Although I took there are restrictions.
Oh, gotcha.
At least I remember back then. Park, they developed this land parcel there.
Just saying.
Just- We had one for a while.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, yeah.
Cabela's.
Yeah.
It used to be Maine's. Yeah, Maine's, then it was, yes, top of the, then it was Topaz, there you go. They were great when they started it. And then it sat vacant for about 3 years.
A long time, yeah.
3-4 years.
Okay. I'll let them know.
Yeah, for a while there, that part of the street Nothing on that.
Like a little conflict, at least.
I do like that.
So the expenses for the parks and the buildings, so that's associated with review, final touches to the actual new pump house.
Okay.
Areas.
Yeah, I was just curious, but so council knows, I asked, Administrator Wade, what was causing in the report for a spike in the park, so, utility, and another area on the budget, so, thank you.
That's the bit.
Nice. Got about 3 minutes. So Officer Hart, were you out on patrol last night?
I was.
So you must have drove by my wife and I, we were out walking.
I did. I waited, but it's so dark.
It was so dark.
They didn't see me.
I was like, wonder if he sees us or
I did.
not. Probably wondering who are the short people out walking this lane.
Yeah. I always try to wait, but
It was, yeah, a beautiful night last night.
yeah, it was. Compared to the night before when it was raining.
Yeah.
Fine.
The rain doesn't bother me as much if it's raining and windy. Then if you have an umbrella, it destroys the umbrella.
The wind
The
was rough.
wind brings it right up in your face anyhow.
The wind was
We're on
rough.
recess. Oh.
We're not recording.
But yeah,
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
What?
did you say we're not recording?
There are no breaks. You know.
Super secret.
Yeah.
It's packed, right?
When I first became mayor, yeah, 2 months.
Oh, they're just like.
Wow. Great. The lights in our city.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we'll get a decent show. Yeah, everyone. You and everybody else. Yeah, I'm gonna post tomorrow.
I mean, you were there. when we were like,
Okay, let's go ahead and call the meeting back into order. So with that, we will reconvene the open session of our city council meeting. We've already done the flag salute. I'm so sorry for those that missed it. It was awesome. Before we move on, city councilors, we have removed agenda topic number 8, calendar of ordinances. I want to make sure everyone is aware that that's been removed. My other question would be, we have 3 topics on the consent agenda. Does any counselor want any specific topic brought out for regular attention? And I can get a visual nod in here, but I'm going to ask Councilor Yarnley, anything you want pulled out? You're on mute. 7 seconds.
No, there's nothing I want to pull out.
Perfect. Okay. Councilor Pichelle? No, nothing. Senator? Perfect. We'll leave it as is. So with that, we're going to kick off this evening with one of the more fun things to get to watch, an awards presentation, and we're going to hand this over to Police Chief Don Parisi. Long overdue on this one.
Yes, it is. Definitely want to thank Officer Hart and his wife Caitlin for their patience and all that good stuff. But good evening, Mayor and members of council. We're here to commend and recognize the heroic actions of Officer Hart. And with me here this evening to do that, I just want to introduce is his wife, Caitlin, and also Officer Roger Montes, and Sergeant Chris Anderson, all from the Hubbard Police Department. And Officer Marshall wanted to be here, but he'll be here with us in spirit, I think so. But this was a heroic act that involved a life that Officer Hart saved of one of our community members. It involved a medical emergency that our community member was having. This occurred in the city of Donald on November 15th, 2024 at about 10:27 in the evening when Officer Hart responded to a call regarding that medical event. He was actually in Donald working the contract on a set block of time, and was paying attention to the call. Dispatch never even toned it to him, based on his alert observations and whatnot. He saw the call was there, so he self-dispatched on it and responded very quickly to the call, and he beat the fire department there. And it was his swift response and application of life-saving techniques that really demonstrate the highest level of professionalism and dedication to his duty as a police officer. In this situation, every second counts, as we all can imagine, and he acted with complete composure, skill, courage, and compassion as well. So in recognition of his extraordinary efforts, it is a great honor that we want to present Officer Hart with a life-saving award. And this particular award serves as a testament to your commitment to serving and protecting our community, and reflects a profound impact that you've had on the life of that community member. So Angela and her husband and small child. Your actions that day reflect not only your training and your abilities, but also your heart and compassion. You've shown what it truly means to go above and beyond the call of duty. So once again, thank you for your exceptional service. We are grateful to have you as part of the Hubbard Donald Police Department family and team, as well as the cities of Hubbard and Donald are undoubtedly safer because of your efforts. And so at this time, I just want to present you with this life-saving plaque here. And yeah, we'll do some pictures here. Like this. Okay, all right, there you go. And then also, that's not all. We also have for you a life-saving medal here that you can wear on your uniform, and also put like maybe in your shadow box one day or whatever you desire. So there's that as well. And then also from the Woodburn ambulance service, they really commended Officer Hart and his actions and quick response that evening as well. They wanted to present you with a challenge coin also. So it's from Woodburn Ambulance Service. Thank you. And last but not least, right? I just want to share a message on behalf of the wife of the gentleman that Officer Hart saved. Her name's Angela, and they of course were kept in the loop and invited, and they wanted to be here. They said they're here with you in spirit, and but they couldn't make it. So she just wanted me to tell you that she says that we are very thankful for you. You are truly a hero, and you deserve this recognition and so much more. I'm proud I live in a community where you serve. I am forever thankful for you saving my husband's life and making sure my son has his daddy. I hope you have a good evening. You deserve this so very much. And that's from Angela. So. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. It is always great to start a meeting off with that. Well, outside of the executive session, that's out of the way now. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on now to our regularly topic, the regular agenda. And with that, it's gonna be the mayor. Good feedback from someone.
I wonder if I put that up too high or something.
I don't know if it's mine or, yeah, that works out. So with that, we're gonna move on to Marion County Radio Project. With us today, we have Marion County Commissioner Paul Willis. So with that, he's gonna come up and take the podium. In our packets, we all did receive a short memo from Administrator Waite on this as well. So hopefully everyone had a chance to at least read that, kind of brief themselves on the topic. Should be that first page right before that. Economic development opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. I really appreciate your time and including me in your agenda. This is a serious
project and I would say an important issue for our community to consider. So I appreciate your intentionality in taking the time to think about this project. Several years ago, Marion County received ARPA money from the federal government. We received about $68 million from the federal government. And we went through a extensive process to figure out how to allocate these resources. And one of the things that came up over and over again, as we were talking to our public safety partners, was the lack of adequate radio communication ability in Marion County. As you know, the system that we've used for years is a VHF system, and as more and more interference comes online, that system gets harder and harder to actually work for our first responders. And we have a number of first responders, similar to the police officer you just heard from, who are in situations, life and death situations. They call for help on the radio, and no message is received because of the interference. So we really took that apart. Obviously, different parts of the county work better or worse. Several years ago, the city of Salem implemented a new radio technology that works a lot better. And so we took the time to think about whether that was right for our community. After some research, we decided to actually move forward with this project. We allocated about $10 million in ARPA dollars to this project. And we hired a consultant. We went through the process to get the ball rolling. We're now moving forward with the project. The estimates are a little bit higher on what it's going to cost us. I think it's looking somewhere between $14 and $20 million, but we're kind of at a fork in the road. And the issue is whether or not we're going to build a 3-channel system or a 5-channel system. 3-channel system will serve Marion County, the sheriff's deputies, and will serve, essentially Marion County. A 5-channel system will serve basically Marion County plus all the other agencies who we work with in the area outside the city of Salem. The issue is that different communities, and this is something that I'm really proud of, different communities in Marion County have basically protected different parts of our community for years and years and years. And different folks have done it different ways, and they do what's right for their part of Marion County. So St. Paul has a different fire system than Woodburn does. Woodburn has a different fire system than Biggs Crossing does. You can kind of go around the community, and different folks set up their emergency response different. One of the things that's really important for me in this process is that we don't impose something on our communities. There's a reason why the different fire agencies, the fire districts, different police agencies operate the way they do. They have different budgets, they have different needs. But we are in a place now where we have to make a decision about whether we're going to build this bigger system, this 5-channel system, or this 3-channel system. And for me, the important thing really is the ongoing cost of the system, whether we can afford to pay for the ongoing operations of the system or not. So to that end, what I'm asking of every agency is for you to tell us if you're interested in joining the system and whether you can afford to pay some user fees for the system. We have worked with the Metcon agencies. We tried to put together a proposal of what it would cost each agency per year to be a part of the system. And so I think Hubbard Police Department, the one that I'm looking at here, is about $10,000 a year is what it would cost for the Hubbard Police Department to be on this system. Is that right? Is that what you have?
It's approximately that. There is an escalation rate every year, so there's a % increase. Depending on which model you're looking at, it could be up to 10%.
That's right. And what I've said to every agency that I talk to is that, so the request is to, if you could respond to us by the end of this month, saying whether you're interested in participating. And then if, when you look at the annual cost per year, you say, I can't afford that, then what I would ask is that you tell us what you could afford. Because we're trying to put this model together, and we're trying to make it fair for all the different agencies. One of the things to know about this is the system we're building is as cheap as we possibly could build this system. It's about half, the per user rate is about half the cost of the per user rate for this technical system anywhere else in the state. But that doesn't mean that it's not a burden on our agencies, and I know that. So that's part of the reason why I'm going to every agency asking, is this something you're interested in? Is this something that you're willing to participate in? And I want to be super clear that it's okay. You say, hey, that's not really something that is important to us right now. I certainly won't hold it against you. Like I said, I deeply respect the different agencies in Marion County and the care that they provide to our community over the years and the diversity that we have. So I don't want this to feel like pressure in any way, but me and the other commissioners have a decision to make. We have to make it by the end of this fiscal year. So if you could respond to that, I sure would appreciate it.
Do you want to entertain discussion now?
Sure, I'd be happy to answer. Yeah, be happy to answer any questions.
So, I do appreciate you coming and actually, giving the presentation.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to see commissioners getting out and into the cities, especially the ones that they're representing. I do have some grave concerns.
Yeah.
One is the cost. But I do understand the need to put in, ARPA funds have to be spent, they already had to be committed rather than returned.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you guys have already committed ARPA funds to this program.
Correct. Yeah, this is what I said. We're doing it. We decided that this is really important for our community. So we are moving forward. The only question is whether we're moving forward with a 3-channel system or 5-channel system.
Okay, so a question I have then, the cost in terms of services, and this might be not really a question to you, but maybe even to Administrator Wade, would these be on top of the Metcom costs as well?
Yeah, so this is just for the radio project. This does not include the dispatch services.
Yeah.
So this would be in addition.
One thing to note is, I think Metcom has a radio fee as well currently.
Yes, they do.
So I think there's some question as to whether that would continue if they're no longer doing radio.
Okay, but it's an assumption if it will or won't, so it's a risk.
It's yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Certainly.
But even when I just do the math, because thank you to Mr. Wade for providing us only some initial stuff. I love Excel, right? You can throw things in. And then at 10% using the worst case increase every year, within 5 years, that 10,000 becomes 22,000. Within 10 years, it's up to 35,000. And it's exponentially just keeps getting more and more expensive, which is a huge concern, at least from my standpoint, only because I've got to sit back and know that if I can get $10,000, I want to try to put a sidewalk in, or I want to try to put a park in. And then I've got to look to my police chief and ask him the timing. Is it a nice to have or is it a must have? And I don't disagree that I think our radio systems need to be eventually upgraded. We need to go to a much better band, for lack of a better term. But when, I look at the timing, and I wrote timing on this because it's all over the places. This country is entering some very uneasy times. We'll be in a recession. Will the recession be bad? Will it be good? I've never a good recession, but I mean, will it be a better recession than a real bad recession? We have inflation that's just starting to kick the city's rear in terms of all the costs we have to do already. PGE was very unkind to us in terms of their rate increases. That's taken a huge bite out of our budget. So as much as I would love to, at least from my seat, say that, we would love to do this, I don't even know where our own budget's going to be. And I know, at least, and I'm sure Administrator Waite might have pointed this out, we're just starting our budget process for next fiscal year. We won't close that until June, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, we'll be in May is when we finally start getting these numbers. And I know from my standpoint, at least, and the budget standpoint, we can't even give you an answer on where we would be with our budget until best case end of May. Administrator Wade can correct me if I'm wrong on that. So, I mean, I don't think we can even give you a response in terms of whether we want to do something or not until after we get our budget for next year even figured out, which right now isn't looking great.
So I'm here at this time specifically because I understand the budget process, and we also have a similar budget process. So we're on a fiscal year. It sounds like you are as well.
Yeah.
So the reason why we're requesting the responses when we're requesting them is because we have to make our decision by the end of the fiscal year. So I think what I would say to you is, while I would like the answer sooner, if you can get to me by the end of the fiscal year, that's good enough. What can be a problem is if I say, get to me by the end of the fiscal year, and then somebody gets to me in August, I have to say, like, well, you're too late, right? So if I say get to me by the end of April or the end of March, and you're too late, then no harm, no foul, because I still have to the end of the fiscal year, right? But the problem is if I tell everybody, hey, I need it by June 30th, and you miss the June 30th deadline, I can't really go back. So end of the fiscal year is no problem. What I would say on the inflation and the increase, we're comfortable signing a multi-year contract. So if what Hubbard's position is this is something we want to do, the 10,000 number is something we're close to, but we can't have it be $20,000 in 5 years. Let's talk about that. I'm comfortable saying, okay, we're not gonna have a 10% increase year over year, and we can hammer that out before you guys give us any commitment of any sort. So I just want you to hear that we're open to a multi-year agreement.
So, and another question I'll have for you, and then I'm gonna be quiet, because I want to give time for other counselors to ask questions. I don't want to monopolize the time. What other agencies or districts have committed?
I got formally, Mount Angel sent me a letter. I actually brought it here. I can show it to you. Jim sent it on March 5th. And then I'm waiting for their written commitment, but verbally, Woodburn Police and Fire have also committed as well.
Yeah.
I've spoken with other agencies, but I haven't.
So you have 3 commits out of how many agencies? Do you know off the top of your head?
No, I don't know off the top of my head. I thought it's a lot. I have 20 incorporated cities.
Yeah, I know. I don't mean to put you on the spot for that question. My apologies.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that I think about this is, Marion County, is really big.
It is.
So we're gonna be buying a lot of radios. And Woodburn Police and Fire are pretty big. So that's part of why I'm going through this process, as I'm sort of trying to figure out, like, what does this look like to operate? And when I know who's participating, then I have a better idea of how to operate this. And
I'm assuming even in terms of distribution of costs at that point. I mean, I'm not sure how you can figure out.
yeah, there is some adjustments that we have to make. What's interesting though is that it's not as much as I would think. So most of these systems that I know of, their user cost per month are over $100 a month. We're not anticipating anything close to that, kind of regardless of who shows up and who doesn't. So I think it's within a band, but yeah, there's going to be some change in cost depending on who shows up. I think the bigger issue for me is operational costs. Like, how many people do we need to run the system? How many different agencies do we need to service? How many radios do we need to service? I think from my perspective, I'm less concerned about the revenue side than I am about the cost side. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I don't want you all to feel any pressure about this. Like, if this is something where you're like, this isn't a priority for us, this isn't the right time for us, super comfortable with that. But if your perspective is, hey, this is important, we know our radios aren't really working, we'd like radios that work, but we need some cost certainty because we have a tight budget and we're going into maybe some tight times, then I would, so let's talk, let's see if we can make this work for you. My heart for this project is, I would say, really especially for our rural communities, because frankly, the big cities get all the resources and it's really easy for them to do things and it's harder for smaller communities to do things. And so I view one of the roles of the county is to really be a partner to our small rural communities to help them be successful. Because I think our system here in Oregon, frankly, is slanted against small and rural communities. That basically it biases large cities, basically. And the system works for large cities and doesn't work as well for small and rural communities. And so My hope is that Marion County can kind of be a partner here in helping our small and rural communities and our rural agencies have the resources they need to be safe. And there's no question that we're well served by the people who are in our agencies. They're brave, they're hardworking. Oftentimes, you're talking about multiple generations that have protected our communities. I just think it's not fair that they don't get the same resources that the big cities get. So trying to right that ship.
Understood. Now, I've been totally monopolizing the questions, so Councilor Zadi, any questions?
Yeah, question. First one is, you said you guys are ready to sign a multiple-year contract. How many years are you guys going to sign, and how many years are you asking cities to sign up for?
Well, in our conversations, it's been 5, but if you would like less than that or more than that, I don't think that we're wedded to any set number, any term.
Okay. My other question is, I see you're asking for 10,000, with an increase of 10%. But then you also said when you're asking for the 10, if we can't do that, what can we do? So what is your real, like, what are you really looking to get? And where's your break off point? At what point do you not do it?
Well, I think the bigger question is operational. So what I've said to the different smaller agencies is, what I can't do is I can't, like, especially the fire agencies. So the fire agencies is that they've expressed this is a bigger problem than police agencies. And I sort of understand, but I don't entirely understand. But the issue is number of radios. So we have a couple of fire districts who will say something like, we need 80 radios, but I can only afford to pay $5,000 or something, right? And I think $5,000 a year. So I think the way that I've thought about it is like, well, unless we have a formal agreement where sort of the bigger agencies are subsidizing the smaller agencies, I don't feel comfortable with that lopsided of a situation, right? Where essentially somebody's paying for 5 radios, but they're getting 80. I don't think that's sort of sustainable. What I've said is there an operational system where maybe you can start off with fewer radios and then over time increase as the resources allow, right? So, if you have 2 deputies on duty at any given time, maybe you start off with 2 or 3 radios, and then when new deputies come on, they take the new radios, right? So the folks who are on duty would have the new radios, right? And the folks that are off duty maybe wouldn't have the new radios. So that would be an example of something where you're able to pay less money, you get fewer radios, but you still operationally have the radios that would improve the service level or improve the ability of your folks to do their job, right? So I think maybe that's sort of the way that I've been thinking about it is there a way, there's obviously the ideal is we have all these radios and it doesn't cost us anything. And then there's the real, which is how many radios would actually meaningfully improve the safety of our folks on duty? Is that a smaller number than the number that we would ideally like to have? And maybe that's a smaller cost to the agency. So I think that's sort of how I'm thinking about it.
Thank you.
You keep saying cost per radio. I just want to make sure we're talking about the bandwidth and actually servicing the radio, but not actually the devices, right? And we still have to pay for those, or are you planning on giving everybody as part of this, the actual radios, chargers?
Yeah,
Our radios.
two different costs. So one cost I consider the capital cost. So, and for me, the capital cost is everything soup to nuts. I gotta build the towers, you gotta buy the radios, like the sort of fixed stuff we need for this to work. The other cost is the operational costs. Radios break, towers break, things need to be serviced. I need to be able to pay for the operational costs over time. The capital costs, I'll admit, aren't fully figured out yet. But, we've been meeting with our state and federal delegation. This is a project they're excited about. They think it's worth investing in. I think it's worth investing in. So I think if we're all willing to kind of stick together and asking for help for the capital costs, the upfront costs, I think there's a good chance that we'll be successful in paying for that. the bigger issue really is the ongoing costs, because that's does this thing work or not? Is it worth paying, $14 million for a system if you can't actually afford to keep the system going year over year? So that's why I'm here, is when I'm saying, talking about cost, year one, when I have this $46.27 per radio per month. Really, what that is that's a way that we're allocating the cost of the system on a per radio basis. There has been some conversation about whether there's a different way to allocate the cost. I haven't come up with a good one that feels fair to me. I think, like I said, I'm interested and we're open to different models. But I think what this model does is it ensures that people who are using the radio system pay for the operation of the radio system. And so that seems like a fair way to allocate it. And also the bigger agencies do pay more under this model because they have more radios. So a per radio per month system does mean that the big agencies pay more because they have more radios. The small agencies pay less because they have fewer radios. So that feels like a fair way to allocate the cost of the system.
So just to make sure I understand, so you're looking at the $10,000, going to include providing the radios and everything along with the service and access to the system.
What it would, I want to be clear, the cost of purchasing the radios is separate from the $46.27 per radio per month. So the 10,000 or what do we have? The $9,993 is paying for the ongoing operations of 12 radios and 6 mobiles. Okay. So it's an allocation of ongoing operational cost. The upfront cost, which is actually purchasing the radios, that is a separate cost.
Okay.
What I've said to the Metcom folks is I'm willing to, I can't speak with parents, but we've had these discussions. I'm willing to basically take the risk on that as far as like, I don't have that fully figured out yet. But I'm not going to surprise you with oh, by the way, here's a big bill, you have to pay for all these radios, right? So I think what we're gonna have to do is we're going to have to get fill the capital cost bucket. We don't have all the money we need to fully build the system yet. We're most of the way there. I'm willing to be kind of at risk on that and figure out how we're going to do that. I'll take the lead on that. So long as the agencies that say they're in are willing to support the ongoing operations of it, basically say, yeah, we're doing this. What I maybe wouldn't be comfortable doing is if folks say, well, we don't know if we're going to do this or not, and then we go and tell our partners this is going to support all the agencies in our region, and then we have all the agencies in our region say like, no, we don't support that. Like that doesn't work, right? That hurts our credibility. So So that's part of the reason why it's sort of like the question that I need answered is, are people able to participate in the ongoing monthly cost of this radio system as a first question? And then the second question is, okay, then we'll go figure out where to get the money.
I guess my concern would be, I don't know if we're gonna have a budget to buy into the radios, like, cause that's a lot of capital up front. I know just body cameras, we just were able to get a grant for it. But at the same time, that costs are really high, and it's another budget line we have to figure out how to fund.
Right. I think what I would say to you is my view on this is purchasing the actual physical radios. I don't view that as only on you, as if like you guys have to figure out how to buy your 12 radios. I view that as a collectively, we have to figure out how to buy the radios for this system. And we're either going to do that or we're not going to do that as a collective is sort of my view.
Administrator Wade, do you have a comment to add?
Yeah, I would just like to add one thing. So as the commissioner has stated, there is some flexibility perhaps about we can't afford 10,000. What can we afford? I want to caution council for that consideration. I would really like to say, okay, if we're in, we're in. because for example, where we're at with Metcom right now, it does appear that, larger agencies have been subsidizing Hubbard call volume a little bit. I don't want to get into that because then we end up with a big bill 5-10 years down the road, kind of what we're facing with Metcom. So I'd really like, if we're gonna consider this, it's not gonna be, we're gonna negotiate the number. This is the number. Just
Mhm.
my 2 cents.
Any other questions, Councilor Stein?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Michelle?
Yeah, so in the memo that we got from Mr. Wade, it mentions that, you were looking for possibly submitting funding requests to the state legislature. I know they're in session right now. Have you had any conversations with any state legislators? Or has there been any movement, I guess, in that area?
I have had conversations with legislators. We most recently had a conversation with, Congresswoman Salinas. I was back in DC and she expressed strong support for this project.
Okay,
So we've started having these conversations. They're aware of this project.
all right.
As sort of an end of the session, bill that happens. For the state legislature and for, Congress, they're looking at, a bill passing, later on in the year. There's some discussion about when exactly it's going to be, but everybody's focused on,
You never know with them.
getting a bill passed later in the year, so.
Okay. All right, well, I was just curious about that. So you guys covered so much other stuff, so.
Councilor Yonley, anything you would like to add to this discussion before I jump back in?
Well, it seems like there's a lot of unknowns here, as in cost. You know, when would this system be projected to be in place? Would it be in 2026, 2028? When would that system be projected to be put in place, that we would have to start buying new equipment to be prepared for this, even if we were, up to funding our portion of the system? Is there any projection start date?
Yeah, that's a great question. 2026 is when we would, start collecting. So you're a year out from when this would actually go live. So I know you're going into your fiscal year. We would not collect any fees this upcoming fiscal year. So the collection of the fees would begin in, I guess it'd be 26, 27, and that's when we would expect the system to go live. ARPA has a hard deadline. The ARPA projects have to be done by December 31st, 2026. So,
I believe that's driven by the ARPA funds or the.
yes. Yeah, criminal fund. So yeah, so we're under the gun on this one. We have to get this thing done and live. And that's part of the reason why I'm here, is because one way or the other, we have to move forward.
Yeah. And so we build out this system. Then what do? We hand it over to Metcom to be dispatching on?
Yeah, well, we've had early conversations with Metcom about improving the wireless system. Their kind of radio receiving system for the purposes of dispatch. So Marion County will continue to operate the system and maintain the towers, and Metcom is going to dispatch. That's the current thing.
Okay, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wish we had better numbers to work with at this point. Really do. So, and I know this is maybe an administrative thing that needs to be decided further down the road. But would we have, like you're saying, buy 2 radios for the first 2 cars, this fiscal year? Well, that means we have several more cars that need upgraded radios. Are we going to be operating both the old system and the new system at the same time? What's the communication between, let's say we have a shooting and we need 5 cars. We only have 2 with the new system. Where's the communication at for the other 3?
Yeah, so that's part of the conversation we're having with Metcom about buying some technology for them so that they can have both systems and both systems can talk together. because I do think for some agencies, that's going to be the reality. So they will continue to operate the old system and they'll buy some radios on the new system. And then over time, they'll increase, as they have more funds available, they'll increase. I think on the numbers that you liked, I'm more than open to whatever numbers you need to hear. I think the way that I think about this is if we know who is willing to pay the user fees, then we're going to go with those agencies and we're going to try to get the capital resources that we need to finish this system off. If, let's take a worst case scenario, let's say that Hubbard sends us a letter saying, yes, we support this, and yes, we can do $9,993 a year in user fees. I'm not going to sign a contract with Hubbard until after we know that we have all the capital costs necessary to build the system, if that makes sense. So you can think of this kind of like a letter of intent. It's not like I'm gonna come down here and be like, well, if you don't sign this contract, then you're out. It's more like, do we have the participation necessary to move forward on the 5-channel system? And then we're gonna get the funds to build that 5-channel system, and then we'll come back and we'll sign a contract once we have the 5-channel system funded, the capital costs funded. So maybe that helps. But I'm not asking you to sign a contract today or this year. But I am interested if this is something, as you look at your budget this year and next year and going forward, that this is something that you think is worth prioritizing in your budget. And like I said, if not, I totally understand, no big deal. You guys have to protect your area and you have to do what's best for the folks you serve. So I'm not trying to put pressure on you.
Hold on, real quick. Councilor Godley, anything else?
Yeah, I do actually. Maybe you'll help address this one. We do have one other interested party online with us tonight, Chief Carmen, if he's around. Maybe he might have some input on what the fire district may be looking at with this as well. So
I would, Councilor Yonley, for that one, I'd like to just keep it on topic for the city council, though. We can discuss it with Chief Carmen probably a little bit later. It's a different agency, and I don't want to speak for the board.
All right, so I'll go ahead and that's all I have then.
Okay, Councilor Steiger.
Just to follow up, so I guess what I was misunderstanding that I think I hear you saying is you're planning on going back to like federal government or bigger to find the money for the radios.
Correct.
And that's where you're hoping to actually supply that, and this is just the operation costs that we're looking at.
Correct.
So that makes it feel a lot better. Like, how are we gonna buy all these radios? So now I understand better that your goal is to say we're gonna do the 5-channel, and then you can go back to the legislatures and be like, okay, now you guys need to give us enough money to buy radios for all of
everybody. Correct.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I've talked to one of my friends that has gone through the whole process of changing from VHS or VHF to 800, and they do really like the way that 800 works. So on that, I do like the idea of upgrading to a better system. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mayor and Councilor, I'd be happy to meet with Chief Carmen at another time if you'd like.
So just to close out, just my cards on the table for you. I do appreciate you coming up here. That's a big step. As I said, it's great to see the commissioners getting out and talking to us. For funner topics, sometimes even a little better. But this one, my biggest concern is you have 10 million currently allocated for a project that can go up to 30 million. So that's in my memo here, right? You had 10 million for your ARPA funds.
We've been told, as I'm looking at a $20 million cost. I have not heard of a $30 million.
I got between 18 and 30 in the memo, but that being aside, even at 20 million, so you're about 50% funded. And I just don't know where the funds will come for that. Now, if the state will allocate it or the federal government.
So what I've been told is that I can build a $14 million system, or I can build a $20 million system. The $14 million system, I'm fairly confident we're close to 14. I wouldn't say we're there, but I'm fairly close. So In my mind, I think the ask that we asked, Congressman Salinas was $5 million. So in my mind, that's the gap to do a 5-band with all the agencies. These are round numbers, so,
I see.
so I don't have, specifics for you, but what my understanding of the project is we have resources that we can put together to get to somewhere around $14 million. And then we have a bit of a gap, somewhere around $5 or $6 million.
I guess my biggest concern is I don't know how in good conscience, when we already run an operational deficit on our budget, how I can give a commitment, or at least on my book, to give a commitment to something that I just don't understand the numbers yet. And it sounds like you guys are still trying to pull the numbers together. As you mentioned, there's still a lot of unknowns. To me, it's like buying a car and they're not necessarily telling me all the little hidden costs that might go into it. And I can understand, you just don't know. You're still trying to figure it out yourself. So I guess my question would be, are you driving this process forward? And you don't have to answer it. Are you driving it forward to ensure that the ARPA funds are spent without necessarily fully comprehending the cost yet? So is it a bit premature?
Man, a good question. So if ARPA didn't have a 2026 deadline, yes, I would have more information when I came to you, because I would come to you probably not right now. I'd probably come to you next year. Right. So yes, if this were a normal process and I didn't have federal deadlines on this money, then we would do it differently. I am fairly confident in the operational cost of this project because we're fully in control of it. So and maybe this is your question, the capital costs are not fully accounted for right now. And they must be in order for us to build a system.
Exactly.
Right?
And
So
then you gotta come from
I can't build a system if I don't have the money to build a system. And this is where sort of, I'm willing to be at risk a little bit on this, right? As far as like, I'm willing to kind of figure out how we're gonna build this system, because we have to build it one way or the other. And we as a board have committed, we're gonna build at least a $14 million system, for our agency. I would also like this system to serve the broader community. I am comfortable with folks saying, well, why don't you build the system? We'll see that you do it, and then we'll decide later on if we're gonna be a part of it. Like, I totally get that. I'm not as nervous about the operational costs, because that's fully in the control of the county. So like, I think a good example is just this, like I said, these numbers are half the user fees of most other agencies that run 800 systems, right? And the reason is because I'm in charge of so we're gonna do it super lean, right? The board's in charge of what this looks like and how we're gonna manage this. So I think I feel more comfortable about the operational costs. And I think, just to clarify, I mean, this is where I was talking to some of the folks at Metcom, we're in the same position. So I don't want the cost of this system to be out of control, because I have to figure that out in our budget, just like y'all do, right? So the nice thing about this is, situationally, I'm the same as every other user on the system, which is I need cost control and operations. Admittedly, I have to go figure out where we're gonna get the capital money to fully build out a system. But part of the reason I'm here is I'm not gonna go build a $20 million system if there's only interest in a $14 million system. I think that's really the bottom line. If only basically Marion County, and one or two other agencies want to do this, then we'll just build a 3-channel system. There'll be a smaller system, and we won't bother with the bigger one. So, but if there is more interest, then I have to go figure out how to build a $20 million system. And so I think that's where what I said earlier, I'll kind of stick to, which is, I'm not asking you to sign contracts. I'm more asking, is this something that you're interested in? And is this something that you'd be willing to budget for in 26, 27? And if the answer is no, totally understand. And I really appreciate your service.
Yeah, I mean, from my position, and I can't speak for the council, but from where I know our budget is today, I can't sign off on it. I would have to be a no. I think it is something, I'm really glad you guys are trying to look at the bigger picture. But my concern is where our budget's gonna be this year. Because, right, we're looking at like, how do we like reduce COLA raises? We're looking at simple things like that. How do we fix potholes? And it'd be nice, but there's still also the unknown, the radio costs to the service fees. And you said we can negotiate them back and forth, but even giving you the hope of an intent that we could do it, I don't think we necessarily can. That would be my stance only because of my insight into the budget. I don't know how the rest of council feels. I don't want to lead you on by saying by end of the month, we can give you a decision because we'd have to reconvene for the council to be able to give that decision.
Yeah.
But I can give you my point now, and it's probably not going to change by the end of the month, is I couldn't sign off on it. Counselor Zadi, what's your thoughts?
I have the same thoughts you had, Mayor. My other thought is that the federal government right now is slashing a lot of things, and I don't know if we can rely on funds from them in the future. At the same time, the economy seems to be coming to a dead halt, so I would hold off, and that's how I feel about it.
Counselor Steiner?
Yeah, as much as I would love to see the 800 radios, based on our budget, I don't see where the money would come from, to be honest.
Okay, Counselor Michelle?
It kind of seems like at some point, this is gonna happen no matter what. Because we're on an older system now, and at some point, it's gonna be obsolete. So I don't know, I would like to look at it a little more and maybe see if there's some way we can kind of stick our toe in the water a little bit on it. But obviously we can't do that today, but, you know, I think it's worth looking at and seriously considering, because it seems like it's gonna get forced on us at some point, no matter what, so, but yeah, not today.
Okay, what about you, Counselor Young? I don't want to leave you out.
Yeah, I would be a no on it.
Okay. And I just want to make sure that you at least don't wait until the end of the month to hear that we're going to be in the same position.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I actually,
But I do agree with Counselor Pichelle. Eventually, we have to upgrade them. The question is when.
yeah, and the one thing I would just add is I came here because I don't want you to feel forced.
And you did
My
a great
my
job.
intention was for you to feel like this is your choice, not being forced.
Well, hopefully, Commissioner Willis, you'll be able to come back up and have another presentation.
Anytime.
We could all be all cheerful. And-
No,
I'm not talking about budget numbers.
Yeah, anytime.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Absolutely, yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and move on to our next agenda topic. That's going to be the Hubbard Economic Opportunities Analysis. Whoop, we have one? Go ahead.
So Mayor, Council, I would like to seek your guidance. So at the next council meeting, I would suggest maybe we have this as an agenda item, because while there is the Marion County project, there's also some other projects or potential for Hubbard to upgrade radios.
Yes,
So-
please bring that into the next session. And I would absolutely be looking for Chief Parisi's input as well, which we didn't get it really to drag you into it. I just got to see you nod and. Because yes, and I would also like to know how we can best align as well with our fire district and how our radios can work. I do know we've had issues with our radio I wouldn't say radio connections, but the ability to communicate with other agencies at just a recent, issue that we had.
Mhm.
So.
Yes.
Again, and anytime you want to drag in Commissioner Willis. before we drag
Yeah,
him.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So the direction is please do bring that in.
Okay, thank you.
Next one would be, again, back to the Hubbard Economic Opportunities Analysis presentation. Jerry Johnson from Johnson Economics, please come up. And I did read the whole thing.
You did? Oh, my condolences.
I started keeping out of the charts, I know how we got them.
Oh, all right. Yeah, well, actually, a lot of times, I should get started. Name is Jerry Johnson with Johnson Economics. We're at 621 south of Alder, Portland, Oregon. And this is the kind of thing that's interactive. This is your report. And we always find the people in the community understand the lines better than we do. We come in there, you collect data and you say, well, what is this? And they'll say, oh, that's, so-and-so. He left that spot, he moved over to Woodburn or something, and it's just easier to understand. the local. So we had a technical advisory group of this, which helped us along, which is always very helpful because we can show the data and they can help us read the data. You just call it sort of collecting the tea leaves and reading the tea leaves. So first of all, congratulations, you have actually a pretty good economy here. This area has a really robust sort of industrial base, which is really advantageous. Something a lot of communities work really hard to get and haven't been successful getting. So you do have a great economic base. The EOA is basically a statewide required document, the Department of Land Conservation Development, which I'm thinking this is probably a grant from them, right?
I'm sorry, what?
Was this a DLCD grant that paid for this? Yeah.
Well,
Very few people pay for their own, unless you're a big jurisdiction, Hillsborough or City of Portland will pay for their own. Most other people wait for DLC to give grants out. The idea is that you're supposed to take a look at what you would need to support your employment growth and your economic development objectives and make sure your planning system and your land supply is consistent with the requirements to support that growth. So it basically aligns. There's the same thing. It's under goal 9 for economic development, goal 10 and the state land use system is for housing, which is a separate process. They should really be linked, but they're not because employment drives housing demand, and then housing demand drives employment demand too, because you have commercial services you need once you get enough households. So the idea that we did is we have a lot of information in there on trends, talking about what's going on in your community. Then we take a look at some of the target industries, what are doing really well in your community, what we think are your future. And then we take that, convert that to land demand, and we take a look at your existing land supply, which the county actually helped prepare. You guys have contract planning, and they did a nice job on doing the buildable land inventory, take a look at your land assets to see what you had, and then reconcile those and see if you've got an issue. Cut to the chase, you're a little short, okay, on both commercial and industrial, more industrial and commercial. But these things change over time. Obviously, it's a 20-year forecast, so the only thing I can guarantee you is we're wrong. It's no one actually gets these right, but you try to get it close, right? If you take a look at what's been going on in Marion County, you know, expansion is pretty much consistent with the statewide average. If you take a look at what's going on in Hubbard, Hubbard's been outperforming the county as a whole, which means it's also outperforming the state, both in employment growth, which is a more difficult piece, as well as population growth. So in the last expansionary cycle, which after the big Great Recession in 2009, 2010, you guys came out really strong and a lot of employment. You took it a little bit in 2020 during the pandemic, but not as much as most other places. And you're well above that now through 2022, certainly through 2023 probably as well. So you're beyond the pandemic, you're in a good expansionary cycle. Your population growth has had some really big years, but population growth again tends to be limited by supply. If you get someone building a new project, new subdivision, new apartment projects, you'll suddenly see huge population growth surges. If you're a big community, this doesn't seem as choppy. If you're a smaller community, you can suddenly see like a 40% growth in 3 years because you had somebody build a new subdivision and it made your community much bigger. So we see this a lot at the smaller jurisdiction level, but and you're actually relatively young, which is really positive. One of the problems we run into a lot of communities is that they're getting older quickly. The state as a whole is getting older as the nation, and that's a concern for labor force. You've got a large Hispanic population that helps keep your population numbers up. You have a lot of kids still in the neighborhood within the community, which is really good, but you've got a relatively attractive labor force for people. If you take a look at the educational attainment of the labor force, it's more of a high school trades type labor force, which really is consistent with your employment base as well. So you've got a really good employment base for this. We talked to a lot of the people involved in your local economy, and the advantage obviously at 99E access, multiple access points along the I-5 corridor. Really easy to serve the communities up and down. From Eugene up through Portland quite easily from this location. And you've got multiple options to get around. And commuting wise, you're actually not really a bedroom community. You have as many people coming in as going out, which is atypical for a smaller community. You really have a lot of employment.
So I have a question on the
Yeah.
connectivity side, because I found that interesting. I know I talked with Administrator Wade about it earlier. She mentioned there's actually a transportation study that will come around later. But I actually almost feel that's one of our Achilles heels. 99E is horrible,
It is.
and I-5 isn't much better now. I noticed you use the term that 99E is a great, way to avoid the congestion on I-5, but I mean.
But then everyone
both
hops on
say-
99E, right?
Yeah.
You have
And I mean,
options.
so how can we use this type of plan to start driving that type of message down to ODOT and our, transportation planners that they need to start investing in our roads?
It'd be nice to get more, you have a lot of communities along 99E which would love some additions to capacity on
Oh,
99E,
yeah.
obviously. And, they're already having fits because the Donald construction is increasing 99E traffic as well while they do. Now, when that's all done,
Biggest.
that intersection is going to be really good for this whole area.
Mhm.
It's going to be a real game changer, the city of Donald particularly, but
Yeah, I guess my question would be, I love the study, but the one I zeroed in on was,
yeah.
we can bring in more businesses, it'll jam the roads more. When we build more homes, the biggest concern we get is the traffic impact.
Well, and this is what, we always talk about balance. We always want to say we want balanced employment and housing so people don't have to commute, right?
Mhm.
But if you look at your commuting patterns, virtually no one lives and works in the city.
No.
Everyone in the city leaves the city and a whole new group of people comes into work. And then you all swap places at the end of the day and you go back again. So,
Wave as we pass.
so your balance is great. It's just different people working than living. And that's not atypical, although it's really pretty extreme in your community. The small amount that live and work in the community is pretty small. But normally when you do that, the way you try to solve it is to get employment that's consistent with your, the labor force that you have in your community, and you actually have that. They just don't happen to work in those jobs, and I don't know what you do about it. Actually, to some extent, this is the thing, the economists get back to everything will settles it, because when it becomes so bad to commute, then people will not commute, or they'll commute less. They'll want a job closer because 99E is terrible, and I don't want to go anywhere anymore. So, maybe that helps. Like Wilsonville's just ridiculous. I'm not going to go to Wilsonville.
No.
It's ridiculous now. I had dinner in town because you never know when you come south what you're gonna run into. This could be an hour and a half, it could be a half hour.
No, I don't mean to rattle you on that topic, but that was my biggest takeaway from the report.
Yeah.
Was just, it'd be great to expand. It's just my concerns.
Yeah, and those transportation pieces, and obviously you got the transportation planning rule, so as you add capacity, you've got to deal with the whole ODOT thing, and ODOT doesn't like people using the roads because it wears them out, and so
Where they do the study in the peak of COVID and say,
Yeah.
oh, your roads are under.
Oh, yeah, well, Portland decided COVID, we went on road diets and took lanes away.
Yeah.
Because nobody was driving during COVID, which was true, they weren't driving, but when they came back and started driving, they started to notice that.
Please continue.
Oh, yeah, sure. So take a look at the growth you guys have had during this last expansion cycle. It's been the construction sector. It's been by far, the real driver of growth. You've got a really strong manufacturing sector locally, but really the growth in the last cycle was construction. And again, they've got obviously industrial space users, they need yard space, typically storage space for vehicles, construction materials, that type of thing. It's a good employment base because it's relatively strong, well-paying jobs. And it's also one that you're not going to see outsourced by AI or offshore. Construction is going to be here. So it's a great local thing. And your employment, as far as the growth in payroll, construction has been everything as far as growth in payroll. Just because it's been all the jobs. Your employment profile is one of the better paying jobs, not the best paying jobs, but that's where all your growth has been. So it's a nice driver for local employment growth. Again, it would be nice if your local population base was working in those, then you wouldn't have to worry about them driving on the roads, but.
Hey, I do.
I'm one of the. You're one of the 19 on here. There you go. So then you have target industry identification. We try to take a look at what's going on. A lot of the manufacturing and construction. Typically in economic development, we look for what's traded sector industries, which is basically you're selling goods and services outside of your area. Manufacturing, of course, does that. But also construction does that as well, because your construction sector is not building stuff in town, it's building stuff up and down the valley. And you're bringing the money from those construction jobs back to the local community. Maybe take a look at what the state's looking at. A lot of the stuff the state's looking at are not necessarily going to be advantages to you outside of advanced manufacturing, the metals and machinery. But for you guys, there's a lot of things going on. And then we started talking about things that you may want to see, which a lot of times commercial services are less about what your strength has been, but the fact that your demographic base is growing. And so you've got more people, more ability to start supporting services like healthcare, clinics, different types of retailers, which cross over a threshold, like, you know, you can't do a Zoom care or something, or a emergency room type, you know, facility until you hit a certain threshold. But suddenly you'll cross over like 8,000 people, and boom, that now you're on the target. You do it the same way with retailers. They'll have a number in their head that, look, I need 10,000 people within 3 miles. And when you cross that threshold, suddenly the retailer that wouldn't talk to you, they're trying to get into it. So as you grow, you'll probably see more strength in your retail. Now, you've got a lot of retail that's older, right, in town. So there's a lot of chance to redevelop and re-intensify that retail over time. Retail, we don't spend usually an enormous amount of time trying to take care of it. You're trying to get it going, and it can concentrate. Basically, a retailer that's more successful will do more sales per square foot on the same footprint. The industrial tends to be more of a problem, and the state tends to be more concerned about that, because, you know, the industrial users just need that space. They don't have options of, you know, if I need a yard space and there's so many trucks here and I need a shop and I need these different things, I just need that. And while you're close to a lot of areas in the valley, those are also potential competitors for you. So you've got to think about this from a competitive standpoint, that you want to have a competitive inventory and lots and sites available that are attractive to people. So when they move or expand or even start, you're the spot they want to go to. So we do take a look at your growth. Your growth by sector, which is type of industry. We took a look at your historic growth patterns. The state of Oregon does a growth forecast, a regional forecast that you can use as a safe harbor, and say that's my employment growth. And they basically said 1.2% growth rate for the next 10 years, which we just extended out for 20, which you're allowed to do in these systems. That safe harbor, what that really just means is the state won't challenge it. It's like you take their number, then they're just going to say, okay. But your average annual growth rate over the last 12 years has been 5.2%. So 1.2 seemed a bit stingy when you're trying to look at your employment growth rates. And if you take a look at the last 10 years, it was 6.4%. So what we did is we did a adjusted scenario that basically boosted up your growth a bit. It's not a lot, but a significant amount, about 2.1%. It adds you about just under 900 jobs over the next 20 years within the community. It seems really plausible. In fact, it almost seems a bit conservative based on the historical, but it's significantly higher than the state's forecasting for. We use those numbers to convert those to real estate products. So you break it out and say, okay, if it's construction employment, it's going to be industrial space, it's going to be this sort of format. It's going to be coverage ratio of like 25%, because I need a lot of yard storage. And you break it out between retail, flex business park, and general industrial, retail space by sector, and you forecast the demand. And we did the safe harbor, and we did a modified growth scenario. The modified growth scenario is the one we would recommend you use, which is a somewhat more aggressive scenario. And that indicates like an anticipated demand for about 44.6 net acres of industrial land over the next 20 years and 16.6 acres of commercial land. That's net acres. So that's after, you know, roads and right of ways and everything else, because you're going to have to, which is usually another 20% you end up getting out of that. That's pretty much what it takes with the road system through there. We took a look at your inventory. You currently have 7.7 acres of commercial, they found on that. It's from the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. And your industrial is a little over 10 acres. which indicates you've got a shortage of about 5 acres of commercial land and 35 acres of industrial land over the next 20 years. It's not huge, but it's significant. What the state does on strategies, then, is what are you gonna do about it, right? So if I have a finding that I don't have enough adequate land, and you're required to have adequate land, you can do multiple things. Some people just say, if I don't provide it, they can't come, therefore I don't need it. And that can work too. We worked in jurisdictions that don't want to grow. So if we did one way up in Wallowa County, 4 jurisdictions up there. Lostine wanted to be left alone. Nothing happened. They've been very successful. Nothing's happened in Lostine if you go up there. They had one wanted to be tourism, one wanted to be commercial growth, and one wanted industrial growth, so they could all sort of figure out what they wanted to do. But if you want to be pro-growth, or you want to basically not push back against what the natural trend is for you guys to grow, to expand. That's what the market's going to want to try to do. If you try to accommodate it and stay ahead of it, you can do that with adding more land. You can do that with intensification of uses. So basically using your existing land better. Our experience is that works better with commercial, not as well with industrial. You can take a look at some of your commercial space and it could easily redevelop, and you could get, nicer looking commercial space. You could get some more activity, maybe your historic downtown, a lot of stuff going on. There's some potential for that. And it's a lot of stuff you have to sort of actively work with. The industrial is more of an issue because, industrial space is less fungible. It's less able to, you can't change the way your operation runs. Your operation is your land demand, and you can't change it to match whatever land's available. So typically we see more support for doing something by adding land for industrial. Doesn't mean you have to do it right away, but as you're going through stuff and you're looking at stuff, and if people start talking about urban growth boundary expansions, just as a heads up, those are long and budget hits, right? They're not cheap to do an urban growth boundary expansion. It's because they take a long time. There are some ways that are somewhat shorter if you do decide to do that. But one of the things the state will ask you to do first is to look at intensification. So we've got a bunch of policies in here that basically suggested in here, that nothing that you obviously have to do, but take a look at ways that you can maybe get more utilization out of your existing land and do what you can, because once you say, okay, we've tried what we can within the urban growth boundary, now we can ask. Honestly, your ask is small enough. If you actually ask for 35 acres, it sort of falls under this umbrella where no one's going to be paying attention. That's not a big number. I'm working with a jurisdiction in Eastern Oregon that's asking for 1,200 acres. That draws a lot of fire. You'll hear about that. 35 acres, I don't know. You probably won't hear as much about it. People won't get too worked up. I think the state will largely support you. DLC has actually been very supportive of economic development, particularly industrial land, and even the governor's office right now, her thing is industrial land. So it's sort of a nice point in the state. The state has not always been supportive, by the way, of economic development, but at the current point in time, they actually are. And so I do think there's a decent chance you could do something about adding some additional industrial land if that's what you guys decided to do. So you go through some of the capacity things. Most of the stuff is just, you're required to keep a 20-year land supply. So basically they're going to try to keep a 20-year land supply. And, when we do services and we look at different things, we're trying to keep in mind the fact that we're going to need some more industrial land, and just be cognizant and aware of it, and maybe opportunistic when you get a chance to expand it. And every now and then, if you have an urban growth boundary expansion, you may find a private person who wants to help fund that, which is not atypical.
Well, what are your motives?
Well, yeah, and those are the only motives I trust, because I know I know why you're helping me. I don't know why you're helping me. That's what I get suspicious. So, questions? Yeah.
And with that, we'll start with questions, and Councilor Zadi, you have any questions?
I don't have any questions yet, no.
Councilor Steiner?
No, I really liked seeing this whole report. Thank you for all the work you put into it. It's really enlightening to see where we're at, where we can go, and some ideas for being able to get people in town, being able to work in town. I know I'd rather not drive to Salem personally.
Exactly. Counselor Shaw?
No questions really, it just, it was an interesting report, a lot of it hit home with me because I do live and work in Hubbard, in manufacturing, and I was reading through some of the things specifically about our manufacturing sector, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense, yeah. And we're having trouble actually finding people
Really?
to work, yeah, and some of the reasons are actually outlined in your report, which I thought was interesting, so, thank you.
Good. No, I hope it's helpful. And again, we'll be back to, you guys have a lot of take more shots at us because we're working with North Marion counties trying to do a broader economic development strategy for all the jurisdictions, which is just starting right now. I think Administrator Wade is handling, she's 2 jurisdictions for that one where she's.
Yeah, I'm working on the questionnaire.
Okay, so we're still around asking questions from people.
Yeah, perfect. Counselor Yonley, any questions?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any questions either. I do appreciate your time coming in. It was an interesting report. Oh, wait, Mr. Wade has a question.
I do want to thank Jerry for all of his work. So as a reminder, the Ford Family Foundation provided funding for outreach to our Latino community. And Jerry came up and tried to help with those conversations and get that input. So I do appreciate his extra effort on that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, much
Well,
more.
I did have one question.
Okay, Counselor Yonley?
I can't quite get that in front.
Oh,
The picture on the right is downtown Woodburn.
Oh, we have Woodburn?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get rid of that.
Thank you.
More of a statement than a question, but yeah.
We're collaborating.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Since we are beginning to somewhat run late this evening. Next up, we have an appointment for the Planning Commission member. We have 2 applicants, Debbie Button and John Nash. Both currently are appointed to the Budget Committee as well. Debbie Button, we just appointed her last council session to the Budget Committee. John Nash has been on there for at least since last year. I believe we appointed him last year, so he'll be a second year on it. Pretty straightforward. Before any nominations, is there any questions or concerns on the 2 candidates that have been placed before you? And we'll start with Counselor Yonley.
I have no comments, questions right now.
Okay, Counselor Zadi,
No comments or questions right now.
Counselor Steiner.
You're not happen to be one of the people that have.
I am. I'm well this month. Last month I was sick.
No, I think you're not one of the ones on the application though.
I'm Debbie Brown.
You are Debbie Butt. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for coming in.
Same question.
Well, I guess. Yeah, it just makes me feel good that you're here. So thank you for coming in and representing yourself.
And Counselor Michelle.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Quite honestly, Mrs. or Miss?
Yes.
Miss Button, would you like to come up and give us anything you want to speak on your behalf?
No, I've been in this community since '98. And I've been on the planning before. And life just kind of gets away from you. And so I decided it was time to be a little more active in the community because I'm always complaining about the budget.
And that's why I'm excited to have you on the Budget Committee, for sure.
I'm always complaining about that one. So I figured, well, instead of complaining, I need to be a participant. So I signed up for them both.
Okay, well, I appreciate you for signing up for both. And please read into nothing on any way the vote goes this evening. I am excited to actually see residents participating in this. And I'm actually excited to see you on the Budget Committee, at least speaking for myself. It was an eye-opener the first time, I think 8 years ago, that I went through that process on how funds are allocated and how we prioritize things. So if there's no other discussion, then I'll jump ahead. I'll just go ahead and make a nomination. I would like to nominate John Nash be placed on the Planning Commission. for no other reason than he's already served 1 year at least, and I am concerned about overloading Miss Button, with trying to put her on 2 committees on 1 year. That being the case, I would like to make the nomination. I don't know if there's a second.
I'll second the nomination.
Okay, we do have a motion, or we do have a nomination and a second. All those in favor of appointing John Nash to the Planning Commission, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so he's been appointed. Ms. Button, please continue to show up to these meetings as well. As I said, I'm extremely excited to see you on the or budget committee. We need more residents like you coming in because we need that type of insight and thoughts. And you bring in a different perspective than some of us that have been on there for some time are going to be bringing that. Well, thank you. And again, I encourage you to please come to our meetings. There's so much fun and such a lively audience.
Bring a friend if you want.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll put cookies out eventually. No, the biggest thing is I want to see more community members. And if I could, if you're not doing anything tomorrow evening, we are having a town hall here as well.
Wednesdays don't work because I serve community meals in Woodburn.
Well, thank you for doing that as well.
That is a huge resource.
Yes, it is.
We serve a lot of people. It started off with just a couple hundred people and now we're up to 1,000.
Oh,
wow. Every Wednesday.
Wow.
That is a lot.
That's a lot.
And it doesn't help too with federal funding everywhere getting cut off that are supporting those programs. So with that, thank you for showing up. And I hope you stay for the rest of this tantalizing meeting. With that, let's move on. We're going to kick it off. Agenda topic 8, the calendar of ordinances was removed, reminder. So with that, Chief Carmen, we're going to hand it over to you for fire district report out.
Thank you guys for having me on. Just going to report out on February. We had a total of 72 calls for service. That was 21 more than February of 2024, which is really much more along the lines of a normal February for us. So we're on about 188 calls for the year so far. So we're on track to hit right around 1,000, which is pretty normal for us. We didn't really have any major incidents of note. We did, however, close out our smoke detector program. So we installed 40 smoke detectors in 17 residences across the Hubbard Fire District. And during that time, we checked quite a bit of smoke detectors, replaced batteries, and just provided some education to the citizens about how to properly take care and test their smoke detectors. So feeling good about that. 25 of those smoke detectors were provided by the Oregon State Fire Marshal's office. They bought them and allowed us to install them. So looking at a turnaround of probably 3 or 4 weeks, we can apply for more smoke detectors from the Fire Marshal's office and start installing those. And we do that just in really try to make the community a safer place in the event of a fire, allow people the opportunity to get out and maybe early access to 911. The faster we can get there, the more property we can save. So everybody wins. Do want to give a shout out to Public Works. We had a water pipe break at the fire station back in the beginning of February. They came out, handled it very quickly, and kept us in business. So we really appreciate that. Great work on everybody's part. District members did do 157 hours of training during February, so we were pretty busy. A lot of firefighter 1 training and a lot of pumper operator training. You guys have any questions for me?
Let's find out. Councilor Yonley, any questions for Chief Carmen?
I do not. Thank you.
Councilor Zani?
No question, thank you.
Councilor Steininger?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councilor Pichelle?
No questions.
Well, we're going to keep it easy on you then, Chief Carmen. I appreciate you guys continued, or your Yes, department. Your department's continued dedication to our community, especially with getting those smoke detectors out around the district. It sounds like a small effort, but it's a huge effort if it saves someone's life, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay, if that's it, we'll let you go so you can enjoy the rest of your evening. And we'll move on to our next agenda. Interested citizens? It's not that we're all looking at you because you're the only one in the room. Is there anyone online that would like to speak? Okay, then we'll move right along to the budget policy presentation. This button is perfect for you to be here for. We'll hand it over to Administrator Lee.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. The financial plan in your packet contains the budget policy and fiscal strategy for how I will approach the fiscal year 26 budget development. The primary challenge for this coming year will be maintaining current service levels as costs, such as personnel expenses, benefits, and materials and services increase by approximately 5 to 7%. And specifically, CIS benefits are increasing for medical are increasing, it was 10 to 13%. So it's a significant increase. This is not just an issue for the city of Hubbard, though. This issue is for municipalities across the state. Approximately 2/3 of Oregon cities are implementing budget reductions for this budget cycle. While property tax revenue remains insufficient to meet increasing costs of services, the city will implement a hold the line budget for fiscal year 26. The focus will be on fiscal stability while maintaining essential services. The city will prioritize cash reserves, aiming to maintain at least 10% of current operational costs in reserves. Based on the 5-year financial forecasts that staff presented to the city council during the January meeting, a temporary stabilization of the budget is projected due to the implementation of new revenue sources such as the public safety fee. However, this stabilization is anticipated to end by fiscal year 28. Staff has 4 specific budget priorities for fiscal year 26 that align to the council goals and priorities that were set earlier. The priorities are public safety funding, ensuring that police and emergency services remain fully funded, economic development and planning, which means continued support for business growth and urban planning initiatives, park and sidewalks, allocating resources for maintenance and improvements in those areas, and essential services, which means maintaining current service levels while balancing fiscal constraints. As part of the budget development process, I will be presenting the budget committee with a structurally balanced budget for fiscal year 26. Any enhancements or new programs will only be added if it's funded through reallocation of existing resources. Specifically, no new programs will be introduced unless there is zero impact to reserves or no reductions to other essential services. Departments must pursue new revenues and maximize cost efficiencies, which means that staff are encouraged to seek grants to purchase operational equipment and other one-time purchases. Grants are not to be used for any ongoing operating expenditures and will not be budgeted as such. Staff will review fee schedules to ensure cost recovery. The intent of a fee is to provide stable subsidy funding or to fully fund program areas such as land use, water, wastewater systems, and streets. Additionally, the city does not have a capital improvement plan for information technology equipment, vehicles, or capital equipment replacement, as a well-planned schedule ensures efficiency, cost effectiveness, and reliability. Staff will present a 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal year 26, and if approved, will be implemented in next fiscal year. Staff will work towards a general fund contingency goal of 20 to 25% of annual operating costs. Again, we're working towards that. The initial goal, as I said previously, is going to be 10%. And any contingencies will be replenished if used on emergency expenses. Any emergency spending requests will be reviewed and presented to the city council for consideration as either a resolution or a supplemental budget. On the consent agenda, repeal of resolution 769-2023 financial plan for this current fiscal year has been requested. Staff was not sure if a repeal was actually necessary since this is just for fiscal year 25, but we wanted to leave that at the discretion of council. Additionally, since this financial plan is more of an administration policy for budget development and execution and will change year to year based on economic climate and the state of the city, staff is requesting that council make a motion to approve the budget policy and fiscal strategy for fiscal year 26 rather than adopting a resolution. And I will turn this over to council for discussion.
One question for you. One of the policies was to continue having department heads look for cost efficiencies. Is there a target you've asked them to do, whether it be a 2% reduction or a 5% reduction?
So at this time, I'm not necessarily looking for reductions. I want to know specifically what's in line items and where we can. So for example, I know that there's some line items that we are going to, I'm sorry, I look at you. Our overtime budget in police is around $42,000. That's overinflated. We haven't been using that overtime budget. So those are areas that we are going to be reducing. There's some other areas that in professional services that I think we can reduce. I want to be a little cautious as we go into budget development, not knowing if we're going to have a recession, if inflation factors are going to increase even higher. So I do want to take kind of a conservative approach, but yeah, we're going to be looking at line item by line item. Is this?
Yeah. The only reason I'm asking is sometimes if someone is asked, and I'm not making any assumptions here, but if someone's asked to reduce a budget and they'll come back and say, I can't. But if you give them a target, sometimes they can dig a little bit deeper, maybe
Right.
find the efficiencies. And then it could be left to discretion of the budget committee and even yourself, while you're pulling that together, whether that's something we're willing to, for lack of a better term, sacrifice, or for this efficiency, or if it's something that's a nice to have or a must have. As I mentioned to Commissioner Willis, you know, I'd really like the question to be asked as we go into next year, is it a nice to have or is it a must have?
Right.
Obviously, as you've already been given the city goals, our parks, amenities like that, those are going to be musts. We want to keep our city looking nice. Police services, obviously a must. Wastewater treatment, obviously a must. But anywhere that we can find things that might be nice to have, or can be delayed, maybe until we find ourselves in more of a balanced budget, would be great. Generally speaking, though, I like how you've outlined this. I think you've got a good plan in place. Those are my questions. So we'll start over here with Councilor Pichelle. Any questions?
No, I think it's very comprehensive, very well put together. So, I like it.
Okay, Councilor Stein.
Yeah, I just going through this whole thing and just understanding how small our city is, just how all of you heads are working so hard to pull together a budget for us to review. I really appreciate all the work and time that you guys put into that. And I understand that's on top of all the other things that you do to keep our city running smoothly and safely. And I just want to thank you for the time that you put into this, even ahead of time. Otherwise, I really like the plan.
Councilor Stein.
I have no questions at this time, and I just wanted to add a thank you also. I don't think most people that live in the city know how much goes into keeping the city going. So thank you very much for the very good report.
Okay, and Councilor Godwin.
I have no questions. It looks very good. And again, thank you to the staff.
Excellent. Then let's go ahead and move forward unless there's any additional discussion from staff. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the FY 2025-26 budget policy as presented, ensuring financially sustainable approach. A financially sustainable approach.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye?
Aye.
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 Okay, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Button, if you haven't gotten a chance to see this, I'm sure we can get a thing printed or sent to you so you can get an idea of what we were talking about there.
All right.
It was actually very well presented. With that, we're going to move on to the mayor and or council presentations, and I do actually have some really neat stuff to share. I know, shocking, shocking. The first one is, Hop Festival has provided us this very lovely plaque that we can hang in appreciation for the $1,500 donation to their 50th anniversary games. I'm not sure if everyone wants me to read the long letter, but what I'll do to make it time efficient is I'll pass it around so you guys can take a look at it. But again, this is something that's really nice that, the Hop Festival continues to do. And I know as a city, from both the staff perspective as well as the city council, we want to make sure that this is definitely a festival that continues within the city. It's the premier event. It's been going on for 50 years, not 50 plus years this year. And hopefully we can continue to see it grow. Even though we have someone on our council that is a representative of their board, again, I appreciate all the hats that you wear as well. So you're probably well aware of what this letter says. So I'll pass it this way, then I'll pass it back the other way. The next one, which was very exciting to see, is last Wednesday, I had the privilege to attend the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governors 2024 Regional Dinner, Awards Dinner. Administrator Wake got to go as well. Part of that very long evening, at the end is we did receive I'll say it again, the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governance's 2024 Regional Cooperative Project Award for the North Marion Business Services Alignment that, quite honestly, has really been spearheaded by Administrator Wake in many, many ways. We were one of the many cities that were recognized down there with the City of Woodburn Economic Development Team, City of Hubbard, City of Donald, Aurora. Why don't they call it the City of Aurora? They're just Aurora. But anyhow, St. Paul, Jervis, Scott Mills, et cetera, et cetera. This is quite an accomplishment at the end of the day with all of the various communities and agencies that are down there seeking this type of recognition, and for us to be called out and receive a plaque and an award for this, something. So my hat's off to our administrative staff for driving this effort and continuing to greater collaboration. So I'll hand that over so we can take a look at that as well. Here we go. Yeah, we're getting like really cool stuff to start hanging on the walls.
Right.
Awesome. Besides notices of not just weeds. The other one is just yesterday, I had the honor of attending North Marion's primary school second graders. I got to give them a speech on civic government, how we fall into it, and what it's like being a mayor. I let them all know we're all volunteers, so we're not paid very much. But at the end of the day, it was a great opportunity to get out there. And also have a great opportunity to meet again with our superintendent out there and talk about additional ideas of how we can continue to collaborate. And of course, they are always very appreciative of the police service that we're constantly providing. So that is wonderful. Another one, just a reminder, number one, we have 2 meetings next week for our council. I apologize for those that just got elected and I told you there wasn't a whole lot of meetings, but next week we do have a few more. Next Tuesday, we do have a joint planning commission and city council meeting. That's a continuation of last time we met. This is one where we're trying to get these things in place sooner rather than later. This button is an open meeting, so I encourage you to attend if you can.
It's on my calendar.
Excellent, excellent. Again, anytime we can get public feedback would be wonderful. And the other one is next Wednesday, we'll also be meeting for Sean Waite's review. That is, again, it shouldn't be as long. If you have not already sent me, I do please give me your feedback as soon as possible. If you don't have anything, it's okay to say not applicable, or I don't really have any feedback to provide at this point in time. But again, I need that by end of day Thursday so I can craft it and get something sent out end of day Friday for everyone to take a look at before we meet on Wednesday. Any questions on that before I move on? Okay, pretty straightforward. I have also sent out that same feedback request to prior counselors, James Odrish and Tyler Thomas as well. James Odrish has already provided feedback, so I'll be able to get also input from the 2 prior city councilors that had the privilege of also working with Sean Waite all last year. That's all I've got on my list. There is a topic that I'll bring in next month. Dealing with the ongoing situation with Bowman's and Bowman's water or wastewater pipe that was broken, sewer pipe. That's ongoing, just so you know. The other thing, just to remind everyone here, is last month we did let you know that we were engaging with the HOA on that parcel of land that was being requested. That is still open. We will be responding, or at least the city will be responding with a legal contact, eventually release the letter. Later on, we'll probably be able to provide more of an update next month on that one. That's all I've got. Counselors, anything from your side? Counselor Bishop?
Just a question for Superintendent Older. When we've got, I know it's way early to be thinking about the splash pad because it's cold and wet, but it's coming. I remember last year we had a real hot weekend after Labor Day, and I think they opened it back up. Is there any consideration to maybe extending, you know, with the way the weather's been a little warmer the last several years, maybe extending it to the end of September, or maybe after Labor Day, doing just weekends or something like that? Is that something we can look at?
I think that's a great idea, and definitely, I know historically we have, when we have warm or extraordinarily warm weather or hot weather after the Labor Day weekend, we have extended it and kept it open and or reopened. But making that a policy, that would be something that I can speak with Administrator Waite on. One thing I will mention though, because we were just talking about budget, it does cost money for the chemicals and all of that that takes funding from the general fund in order to support that.
Okay.
But generally speaking, I think that's a great idea. The kids love it. It's a great way for them to come cool off and so, but yeah, we need to maybe have a deeper discussion of what the extra costs would be potentially and how long we would want to do that.
Yeah, I just wanted to get it out there before, you know.
And I have to say, so running the splash fountain, just the electric bill alone is about $2,000 a month.
Which, ask the question, maybe we can look at a time schedule, maybe just the weekends, when actually people will be using it.
Does it run all night?
No.
Okay.
It could also look at 4 hours as well.
Yeah. That was
Anyways.
nice.
No, I think that's a great thought. Thank you.
Counselor Stein?
Just to highlight, yeah, having it turned back on was really cool last year, so doing the emergency at least idea was, I think you made the right call. I don't have any other suggestions or thoughts.
Counselor Stein?
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Sounds like a lawyer. Okay. Okay, Counselor Yodley?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Another lawyer. Okay, let's move on then to our city administrator report outs. We'll start off with city administrator Sean.
Okay, I will go through my report kind of quickly. Staff would like to begin with a review of the financial reports. The budget is 67% through the fiscal year. Property tax revenues are anticipated to come in very close to budget. However, the other revenue streams are coming in under budget, specifically grant funds. Originally, there was a pause in the ODOT and Department of Justice grants as a result of direction given from the federal administration. ODOT grants for this fiscal year have been opened back up, but the Department of Justice grant has not. Staff was going to use the Department of Justice grant to pay for the body worn cameras invoice due July 1st. For next fiscal year. We did use CIS grant funds for this current fiscal year. Staff has identified savings in other materials and services line items to pay the invoice, so we are still going to be okay for next fiscal year. Staff is watching the street fund closely, and there may need to be a request to use contingency funds, as there have been some unexpected expenditures specifically for legal services associated with project costs and other equipment breaking, so forth. Staff continues to seek cost savings in general fund to maintain financial stability and avoid using beginning fund balance. During budget development, unstructurally budget was presented to the budget committee and to city council, and what that means is our expenditures actually were higher than revenues projected, so we were using beginning fund balance. I did commit to city council at the beginning of the fiscal year that I would ensure that we would come in with a structurally balanced budget at the end of the fiscal year, and we're on track for doing that at this point. Let's see, additionally, some other updates. ODOT is discussing the potential of developing an illuminated crosswalk at the north end of the city on Highway 99E. ODOT's Vulnerable User Crash Response Team will be conducting a field investigation and summarizing the results, which will include specific location of the placement, the type of treatment or project type, so illuminated crosswalk versus some other mechanism. And then also the cost. This report will be ready in sometime early spring. So they're thinking probably the end of April, early part of May. And then additionally, apparently I'm extremely excited for the community meeting tomorrow night because I mentioned it twice. So as another reminder, we have a community meeting tomorrow in council chambers at 6:30, and that concludes my report. Any questions from council?
No questions for me, but a clarification. I do know, I think, Councilor Steininger, we're hoping you're gonna be there, but other councilors can't because we'll be at a quorum. Are we gonna open it as a public meeting or is it gonna be a town hall?
So I have clarified with our city attorney, as long as there's no decisions being made and council's just sitting there taking in information, or we're sharing information that's already public record, it's not considered a quorum, because we had that conversation with the town halls and, getting community feedback, as long as, council is not necessarily discussing city business and making decisions, you can all be in the same room.
Seems like such a gray area.
It is a very gray area.
Well, we're citizens too, though, so.
There you go. Put your citizen hat on.
Yeah.
Okay, going around questions, Councilor Michelle,
No questions, thank you.
Councilor Steininger?
Is there something happening tomorrow night?
I don't know. Let me get back to you. I heard a rumor there's a meeting, but.
I couldn't see it written in here anywhere.
Just.
Councilor's not,
And then,
no questions, Brandon, thank you.
Councilor Yonley?
No questions.
Okay, let's move on to the police department and hand it over to Chief Breezy.
All right, thank you, Mayor and council, members of the community. Yeah, it was a great month. February was. We are in full swing with training our newest officer, Roger Montez, and he just completed phase 1 of his training. It was a 4-week. Each phase is about 4 weeks long, and there's 4 total phases. So we're looking at a 16-week training program, and so he's well off into his second phase of training with his field training officer. Next week, he'll take a bit of a break from field training, if you will, and he's going to go to crisis intervention training that Marion County hosts. And so we're excited to get into that. It's a 40-hour class and very, very important training too. So he'll be going to that next week, and then he'll get back in the into the field with training there. Officer Hart attended ARIDE training, which stands for Advanced Roadside Impaired Driving Enforcement Training. This course provides all of us with advanced techniques and different strategies for identifying drivers who may be under the influence beyond the just standard field sobriety tests and whatnot. So he was really excited to go to that. It's something that he's been interested in. He actually one day would like to be a drug recognition expert. And so this is one of those classes that is kind of before that DRE school, drug recognition expert school. And so we were really excited to get Officer Hart into that thing. So he did very well at that too. So, and actually, when he returned, upon returning from that, he actually connected with 2 impaired drivers back to back, one on each night, that were very, very impaired. So, so that training was put to use. Just an update too, we have one of our officer applicants is in backgrounds, and we're looking at wrapping up that background investigation this Thursday. It's been progressing very well. There's no red flags or anything of that nature. So after this Thursday, we anticipate moving, with the conditional job offer, and then into the psychological exam and also the medical evaluation and whatnot too. So That's progressing very well. And that applicant has, just as a reminder, already been through the academy. They actually sought out and want to serve in a small community versus the large agency that they were just at. So that was really exciting. And they also have family that lives in the community as well. So that's, and they live close by. So I also got to attend my very first CIS conference. It was the 23rd annual conference this year in Salem from February 26th through the 28th. And we actually got to, we were invited to participate on some panel discussion. And so we were able to represent the city and the police department surrounding grants, if you will, because CIS has awarded us a few different grants actually this year. And so we were able to share and just educate others that, you know, it's not hard, it's not difficult, you should do it. And actually had some side conversations after that with some other agencies too. Something that was very exciting while we were at the CIS conference, I'm actually really excited to share that we were selected. We were one of 10 agencies that were selected and to be awarded grant funding for the implementation of a drone program. And so this is really, I think, a significant achievement and whatnot. And I believe it's going to greatly enhance our department's capabilities to improve the you know, public safety and whatnot across all the communities that we serve and what have you. So I have to say a huge thank you to our city administrator, Shauna Wade. She saw that grant and she thought of us and encouraged us and supported us through the filing and helped us file that grant too through that process. So the drone program will really allow us to use those technologies to assist in different aspects of law enforcement, whether it's search and rescue, crime scene documentation, and even some situational awareness in different critical incidents and whatnot. So it'll be, I think, really advantageous to managing those different incidents safely and effectively. And then also, very excited to report our ballistic helmets have arrived and are in. And again, once again, thank you for your support and help with that, and to the mayor and council also. So yeah, those are in and those are being issued, and happy to show those off after the meeting. I think Councilor Steiner has expressed interest. Anybody else who wants to look at them, we're happy to share it. And I think that concludes my report as well, for the most part. So any questions, happy to answer.
Wonderful. Councilor Bishop, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Councilor Steiner?
No, just congratulations on being recognized for the grant. It definitely shows a lot of work that gets in on the whole city. I'm just a little nervous about you going and sharing our secrets, since they are so competitive. But it's really cool. It's great to be recognized and being such a good example for Hubbard. Thank you for being highlighted for Hubbard.
Councilor Zaki?
No questions. Just want to say thank you to the police department.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Councilor Yonley?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move right along then. I don't have any questions. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Director Noble.
On my report, I had some applications listed, and the planning commission will actually be hearing the partition application. The other two lot line adjustments are staff, will be processed through the staff. They don't go before the planning commission. So as already mentioned, there's a joint work session next Tuesday, and it'll be similar to last month. Planning commission will do their application for land use, and then we'll go right into the joint work session. So the meeting will start at 6, and then it will immediately, the joint work session will immediately follow. Other item on, I just wanted to update you, the measure, it will be on the ballot for the vehicle fuel tax. That's all the appropriate paperwork has been filed, and it should be on the May 20th ballot. The other item I wanted to mention was on the building permits. We do have a lot of inquiries on, infill lots, lot line adjustments, partitions, even had a barndominium. application will be coming in shortly. I don't have it yet, but they're inquiring about that. It'll be commercial on the bottom, residential on top. And, also, we will be having, probably an application shortly on that mixed use that has been processed. So I guess this also is a mixed use, barndominium. Let's say that right. Anyway, and also, extension requests will be coming shortly on the Bear Creek, PUD application. They're gonna request for an extension.
Who does the extension on that? Is the city council will approve that or planning commission?
Planning commission.
Okay.
And then I have some graphs there on, the municipal court citations that have been submitted for Hubbard and Donald, as well as the, funds that we've received. And if you guys have any questions?
Councilor Pichelle,
No questions, thank you.
Councilor Stanninger,
I actually don't have any questions.
Councilor Dodd,
No questions, thank you.
Councilor Conley.
No questions. Thank you.
Excellent. I have no questions either. And with that, we'll move on to Public Works and hand it over to Superintendent Hollinger.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. So just a couple of updates to my report that I had submitted. We're still working on the dates for the spring cleanup. We did get the Larry Creek Salver Memorial Plaque has been installed over at Rivinus Park by the splash fountain. The only thing left on that is waiting to for it to cure before we take off the forms. But other than that, it's in the ground and it is ready.
Oh, can I add? So I don't know if the rest of the council knows, but we're having a dedication for that on March 29th, at noon.
That's a Saturday, by the way.
Yeah.
And then just a couple other updates as well. So I'm in close contact with our tennis pickleball court contractor. So as soon as everything aligns with the weather, temperatures and schedules, we're ready to move forward with that project and get that completed. I have actually also reached out for some quotes for repaving that walkway path to see if we can potentially take care of that as well with some of our park improvement funds. So that wouldn't be general funds, that would actually be my park improvement fund, which is more like a construction fund. I'm working to I'm completing the final review of the emergency operations plan update, and we'll be providing final comments to our contractor in Marion County early next week. And what I've been told is that our city plan, once it's complete, will be actually the model for the remaining agencies that are still going to be next in line to be completing and updating their plans as well. The City Hall window glass replacement only project, which that was a reduced scope, as I mentioned in my dashboard. But that is actually, we have quotes for that, and we're working on coming up with a schedule right now with the contractor who was awarded that. So that glass will be replaced, I would anticipate, again, dependent on the contractor's schedule, but I would anticipate within 45 days. I did also kind of want to close out my report kind of by highlighting a bit of what your Public Works team has accomplished. And this is just a kind of a screenshot of what we have done and already accomplished as a team within just these last 2 days of this week. So our UV installation work began Monday, March 10th. Water reconnections work began on the 3rd Street project site on Monday, March 10th. All water service was restored on that piece of the 3rd Street. Moonbeam was restored as well, but we had notified the Moonbeam community that their water was also going to be shut off today for just finishing up that north end section of the project. That I just got word that water is back on now for them as well. So we'll be wrapping up that project over there on the 3rd Street, and we'll be moving over to the G Street project. We also did accomplish getting our walkarounds to our community outreach in person with as many people as we could reach at home, and those that we couldn't reach, we provided the door hangers with the general information. Next project site is G Street. And that's been actually to add to that as well, that's actually been really fun for our team because we've actually been able to speak directly with a lot of our community members. And it feels really good to kind of be bringing them into our public works team as kind of a part of our extended team. And we've had really good outreach, really good comments. Community has been extremely supportive. I know it's inconvenient and, you know, when you have a project right in the midst of your neighborhood. I'd like to also express, our contractor that we have for this project has also been extremely responsive when we have some of those little things that really matter to our community. And I reach out to them, I've had a very quick response on those being taken care of. So overall, I am extremely proud so far of how this project is progressing and what that is looking like for our community. So, and again, the door-to-door has been really fun. And meeting and or re-seeing people that we already know, and just talking to them about the projects that's going on and how that affects, and getting feedback from them. I really encourage all of them to provide the feedback. You know, if they see something they think we can do better, I'd love to hear it. And that goes for our whole community, whether or not they're in the specific project sites or not. But again, been really fun. We have, again, just within these last 2 days, we've had multiple contractor concerns that we've been able to resolve in an efficient, positive manner, kind of a win-win for everybody. We've completed our monthly meter reads and including also our meter reads. And a shout out to our city admin. They knew that I let them know we have all of these things scheduled for the first part of the week. Meter reads were originally scheduled to be done on Monday, and admin staff was very accommodating. They were okay with us, you know, saying it may end up being Tuesday. And so thank you for that. That helps us a lot as we work forward to keep all of this other stuff, you know, pulled together. We also had a surprise flat tire. Our crew got that repaired. That was one of the unexpected things that we were not anticipating to have to do. That was in our 2003 utility truck. As I mentioned earlier, we did get the Larry Creekhauser Memorial installed. We have multiple weekly meetings. All of those have been attended to date. And these are all in addition to the day-to-day mandatory routines and tasks that come up, plus the spontaneous things, you know, from phone calls and additional work that comes out. So I just want to express, I am really, truly proud of my public works team as they continue to pull together and come together as a really solid, as we work towards our goal of being an excellent team. So they are well on task this week, and I have already expressed that to them. And the last thing I will mention is all of this was done with one of our staff on a scheduled vacation. So we were down a person and they were still able to pull together and do all of this for our community. So again, very proud of them. And that's all I have unless council has questions.
Councilor Pichette?
Yeah, so before all this construction stuff began, there was a schedule put out on social media and some other places about, you know, this street we shut down this week and then we're moving over here. And is that still on schedule or are we behind now because of the weather, the snow and ice stuff?
Right, so they did have the one weather day. So they are actually on site. They work 10-hour days Monday through Thursday. So when we did have that last ice snow event, weather event, they couldn't work because the quarry was closed, etc. So there was time lost with that. In addition, we have had some unfortunate incidents of unknown underground infrastructure that's, you know, been abandoned and that kind of thing. We had some issues with getting locates with communications. So there have been some project delays. I'm working with the contractor to make sure our project page, current events on our website is updated as frequently as we can.
Okay.
Right now, I have to be determined on all of the project sites except for the next one, which is G Street.
Right.
But my hope is that we'll be able to get back on track.
Okay.
So we've not lost a lot of time, but we have lost some.
I assume there would be a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the nature of the business.
Right, yeah.
Okay. That was all I had. Thank you.
Councilor Steiner?
I actually don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councilor Zani?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say as a resident of 3rd Street, thank you very much. Your guys and your crew, the communication has been excellent. Really good communication, letting everybody know what's happening on that block. And whoever's doing the work, the actual digging in the ground and the pipes, those guys are right. I love them. Just good people. Thank you so much and good work.
Thank you.
Hey, Councilor Yachty, or sorry, not Yachty. Yonley. Yeah. Combining names now.
Okay, so on that Memorial dedication coming up. What time is that gonna be at? You said that was March 29th
It's scheduled at noon.
at noon.
March
Okay,
29th,
great.
Saturday at noon.
Thank you. That's all.
I'm very appreciative of staff accommodating it, moving it to Saturday so people at work can actually attend. Any other questions? If not, I have no questions. Thank you. We'll just continue on. Next will be consent agenda. We have 3 topics on it. I'll go ahead and read them. A, approval of the February 2025 check register report. B, repeal resolution number 7692023, a resolution adopting a fiscal plan FY 2024-25, budget policy and fiscal strategy. And C, approve the CIS grant award of, is it 1,000 or 10,000?
1,000.
Okay. Approve the CIS grant award of 1,000 for the drone program and delegate authority to the city administrator to execute the contract.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second the motion.
We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda carries. With that, next agenda topic will be adjournment.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. 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 I don't hear it online, but we are adjourned. Thank you.
Aye.
Yes, that is what we're